Let's now consider the game which is the sum of the grown-up rook plus the baby rook. We know that if their Grundy numbers are unequal, there must be a move which ensures a win by matching them. We know the Grundy numbers for the baby rook, so let's now construct the table of Grundy numbers for the grown-up rook. We start in the lower left corner. When the rook has no legal move, his Grundy number is 0. Since this position is an immediate follower of every other square on the bottom row or left column of the board, we can write a check mark on each of them. This check mark means that from each such position there is a winning move for the next player, or equivalently, that its Grundy number is greater than 0. From now on, we'll be concerned only with immediate followers rather than followers of followers or more distant descendants. So let's restrict the meaning of the word follower to imply only immediate followers. We know that along the bottom row, the Grundy numbers match those of the baby rook. They are the non-negative integers in increasing order. Reflecting about the diagonal, we find the same sequence of Grundy numbers running up the westernmost column. This brings us to the next location. It is neither on the southernmost row nor on the westernmost column. Its two followers are both 1s. The minimal excludant of the set containing only 1s is 0. This 0 propagates check marks along both its row and its column. How big are these check marks? Of course, none of them can be 0, but neither can any of them be equal to 1. So these check marks are all bigger than 1. I'll now draw a thick line to indicate that the Grundy numbers of the two squares we've seen so far along this row are, in fact, the first two non-negative integers, namely 0 and 1. Let's call the Grundy number of the next square x. It has a follower which is 2, so it cannot be 2, it must be 3. Now, letting x instead be the Grundy number of the next location, we see that its immediate followers are 0, 1, and 3. The minimal excludant of this set is 2, so this x is 2. We can now improve the lower bound on the thick check marks all along this row. To the left of this thick vertical line, we find 0, and 1, and 2, and 3. So every one of the thick check marks must represent a value greater than 3. The next x also has a follower of 4, so it must be even larger. It is 5. The next x must be bigger than 3, but it has no follower equal to 4, so it must be 4. We can now move the vertical line eastward. The first 6 entries on this row now include the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, but also the new numbers 4 and 5. Each of the thick check marks must now be greater than 5. The next x has a follower of 6, but not 7, so it must be 7. The next x has no follower of 6, so it must be 6. As this row now contains a 6 and a 7, as well as all the smaller non-negative integers, we can again move a vertical line and increase the bound on the thick check marks. Similarly, we can again move the vertical bar, and we can again increase the bound, etc. We can reflect this row across the diagonal to fill in the Grundy numbers of the corresponding column. The next x is the minimal excludant of 3 and 2, which is 0. This gives us a positive bound on the light check marks. The next x is 1. The first 4 entries on this row are now 0, and 1, and 2, and 3. That means the value of the thick check marks must exceed 3. The next x is 6. The one after that is 7. But we still have no 4 or 5, so they come next. We can now move the vertical bar and increase the bound again. That's because this row now has 4, 5, 6, and 7. And we continue on to the next X, which is 10, then 11, then 8. We can then reflect this row across the diagonal to fill in the next column. Our first X on the next row lies on the diagonal, so it is a 0. The 4 entries on this row are now 0 and 1 and 2 and 3, so all of the check marks must be larger. The next values are 7, 6, 5, and 4. So we can now increase the value of the thick check marks to exceed 7. The next values on this row are 11, 10, and 9. We reflect them across the diagonal to fill in the next column. Starting on the next column from the diagonal, we find the values of 0, 1, 2, and 3. The row now contains everything up to and including 7, which then bounds the thick check marks on the rest of that row. The next values are 12, then 13, then 14, and on off to the east beyond that part of the table that we've shown. We can again reflect across the diagonal. The next row starts from the diagonal with 0, 3, and 2. This fills in the set of non-negative integers up through 7, which again bounds the value of the thick check marks. Then come 13 and 12, and the diagonal reflection. And starting from the diagonal, the next row's values are found to be 0, then 1. That again fills in the set of all non-negative integers up through 7, which bounds the thick check marks. The next X has followers in its column, which push its value all the way up to 14. If we had continued on to a larger table, here are its Grundy values.